Hi folks, welcome back to the Hoard, and this video is actually coming from the Hoard. There's only one more video left from my son's house, and it's from some of my flea market finds, but we'll deal with that later. Guys, frequently I'm asked about the portable CDI unit, and I've done some videos up on it, and I was just wondering, given all the questions I'm frequently asked, if perhaps I'm not as clear as I should be in those videos. And we're going to do a few different things. First of all, let's take a look at the parts. And I also want to tell you something that could go very wrong with the parts. This is a person. I mean, that's the what you need to look for. I mean, obviously this is an eBay buy. You get the CDI and you get the spark plug, right? You can see it's cheap. It's only $15. This is from China, directly from China. And you see ignition coil, DC CDI kit fits, and you need the words DC in here. And I didn't print out the guy's descriptor page, but he specifically talks about it being for DC. And if you look at the plug, you see how there's space on both sides of the plug? Like if you look at the plug, you see how there's room on both sides of the plug? That makes it a DC unit. See how you look at the plug here, and the plug goes more or less right up against the edge? That makes it an AC unit. The DC units are dramatically bigger. Right, I'm trying to show that to you in such a way that you guys could actually see it. The DC units, there you go. You could see how much bigger. This is the DC unit, right? This is the AC unit. You see how much bigger it is? And specifically, once again, when you look right at the plug, see how my fingers are on both sides of the plug, how narrow it is. And, oh God. If you look at the plug on this one, see how my fingers are on both sides of it. There's like an extra 3/8 of an inch, half an inch on both sides of the plug. That's the most important thing. So anyway, this is how you get the CDI unit and the matching coil. But sometimes when you get these, even though it says it's a DC CDI unit, and the guy throughout the description said it was a DC CDI unit and gave you all the measurements and all, this clown, Power Motor USA, who ships it to you from China, sent me an AC CDI unit. And I wrote back to him saying, I want a refund because you didn't send me what you were supposed to send me. And let's see if he gives me a refund or if he sends me another unit. This came from China, and my experience with the folks from China, when you say, yo, give me a refund or send me a box to send it back to you in, or send me another one, typically they give you a refund. They don't send you another one. So this guy, I'm not exactly sure what transpired. This was in an opened package. So I'm thinking that somehow somebody messed around with his stock. And I'm going through a lot of time to talk about this because I don't want you guys to buy this and get this and not do the inspection and smash the whole thing together and say to yourself, God, man, that Harvey must have been really huffing on some good glue or eating some of those mushrooms that the college kids like to play with. He went through all this trouble in making a video and the thing doesn't work. First thing, you have to make sure that you get the fat CDI unit. That's it. So, anyway, I'm talking to this guy trying to figure out what's going on. Luckily, the Hoard always has spares, and this is the bag my spare CDI unit was in, and you could see the word DC there, you could see the GY6 right there, and all those other things. So GY6 12 volt CDI. So that's where I got that from. And basically there are two main parts to this. The second thing you need is the wire harness. It is a bear to try to put these wires on here without the wire harness. Okay, so I specifically bought this and bought this, and that's how they described it. CDI cable, wire harness, plug, GY6, 4-stroke, 50 to 150, forget the 50 to 150, but you do need CDI cable, wire harness, plug, GY6, right? And once again, GY6, and you need the words DC when you're buying the CDI unit. So that gives you the two main pieces. Now, assuming you have the CDI, and let's assume this is a DC one, right? You plug the harness into it, and this is where the wires go, right? You got two wires up here. That one would be an on and off. I do not connect it. I leave it unconnected. The other one should be red or red and black, and it goes to the positive side of the DC. Going straight down from that, you got a black and white wire that you don't have to hook up. I hook it up to ground along with the green wire to ground, and there they go to ground, and once again that's going to be on the other side of your battery. You have a million connections to ground, so pay attention to that. You've already hooked up 3 wires. You only have 2 to go on the CDI plug. The other side of the CDI plug is a blue and white, which goes to one side of the pulse generator. The other side of the pulse generator goes to ground. Look how many wires you got going to ground now. 1, 2, 3 from the battery, 4. But we got more coming. Okay? And the last wire coming out of the CDI that you have to hook up to is black and yellow. That goes to one side of your spark coil. The other side of your spark coil goes to ground, and you also need a ground that goes to your engine block to make sure that everything is grounded so that your spark plug, and that ugly thing I put up there is your spark plug. So I'll show it to you first in this box, and then I put another one together out on the bike. So if you look at it on this box, right, and I just unfortunately disconnected this. This is the black and red, and in my case it plugs right into the switch, right? Then you go down, those 2 right here with my fingers touching, those 2 I'm running to ground. On the other side, you see the nice blue one on the bottom, right? That's going to your pulse generator. And the one right above that, black and yellow, right there where my thumb is, that goes to this spark coil, right? So that's how I did it with the box. Other than the CDI, once again, 12 volt GY6, and the cable, which I just showed you, and with the CDI, I bought the matching spark coil. You can see how I got it all mounted right in the box, and there it is. Other than those 3 things, the spark coil, the harness, and the CDI, the only couple, I added 3 more things. I added the plastic case, I added 8 volts worth of batteries, and I added the switch. Obviously, I wanted to make it temporary, so I did all the connections, the external connections, these 2 black ones. One goes to the ground side of the pulse generator. One goes to the engine block. All the internal ground connections are already made. And in my case, given that I have 12 volts right on board. This one I hook to the blue and white spark wire. So here you see it in the portable box. What I did was, I'm using let's see, Homestead Hillbilly, or Hillbilly Homestead, Mike. I'm using his TRX 200 SX as the test vehicle. And you can see, once again, from the wire harness, right, and I was very careful to hook them up with all the pretty color codes. See the, I'm showing you my finger, right? This is black and yellow, and if you follow it, right, you got black and yellow, right there. Underneath it, blue and white, and you can see the blue and white, right? I have it hooked. That's where they're, and see, or blue and white, blue and yellow, right? I have them hooked up. You can see the ground. I went with green. You can see all my ground wires all hooked together in a big bundle here, right? Black and yellow. And you can see I have that going to one side of the spark coil. The other side is ground. Nice big ground wire going to the case, right? Ground wire going to the battery. Hot wire going to the battery, to the switch. Other than that, and you can see all of those hooked up nice. Got the right CDI there. Now all I have to do is theoretically turn the switch on and pull the string. Just turned off the choke and it stalled. So it is that easy to build. Troubleshooting these things, the way I troubleshoot these things, if it doesn't work, if you smash the whole thing together and it doesn't work on your first try, I would start looking at your CDI. Make sure they sent you the right one. Remember, fat where the plugs are. Nice and fat where the plugs are. That's first of all. Assuming they sent you the right one, okay, the next thing I would do is I would unplug it, hook up to where your ground is, right there. Or actually, I'd start off hooking to where your ground is. In my case, where that big wire nut is, I'd hook up right to where my ground is, and then I start probing. And you need a meter for this. I mean, you go to Harbor Freight, you get these things for free. I mean, look, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 or 6 of them out here. Oh, there's another one. You get these things for free right at Harbor Freight. If you're overseas, I can't imagine this meter costing you a lot of money. Ohm meters, not hard to use, right? You turn the dial. You can really do most of your measurements right there at 2,000 ohms or 200 ohms, depending on which things you're looking at, and you start taking a look. First thing you do is, once again, put your black lead to ground and then start probing. It should be like a short circuit, 0 ohms or almost 0 ohms to the green. It should be, once again, after you pull your CDI out, right, you're going to have to turn over the plug, unfortunately, which puts everything on the opposite side. But when you probe the green, you should get almost a short. You should get almost a short. Quite honestly, between ground and here, you should make sure you got your 12 volts, right? which means you got to come off the ohm section and dial it up. On that meter, it's a 20 volt thing, so you make sure you got your 20 volts. As a matter of fact, even go through the trouble of putting a quick 12 volt light between and make sure the light lights up, because sometimes your meter will read 12 volts, but if you put any load on the circuit, you find out you got a connection problem. So actually put a light between ground and your 12 volts. Make sure your meter lights up. And then you start checking your blue and white, your pulse generator. Some of the Honda ones are down as low as 35 ohms. A lot of the Chinese ones are up at about 135 ohms. Your spark coil, I mean, make sure you have continuity. They could, typically they're pretty close to a short. Normally, you know, 1, 2, 3 ohms. It's pretty low resistance. So figure somewhere between 30 and 200 for the pulse generator. And then once again, on the other side of it, you're only going to find, 1, 2, 3 ohms. If it's any more than that, you got to worry that your spark coil is actually alive. Right? And by being at ground, right? By sitting at ground, and remember, one side of your spark coil is at ground, the other side is where you're touching the meter, so you're reading that. By being at ground, right? One side of your meter is at ground, you go to the 12 volt section, you should see your 12 volts. Once again, back it up with the light. These are supposed to be both shorted to ground, so when you check it with your meter, you should see pretty near shorted to ground. Once again, one side of your pulse generator is at ground, which puts 1 lead at ground. When you poke here, you should see between 135 and 200 ohms. Some of the Chinese ones, actually, I've seen 235. On a Yamaha bike that I used my portable CDI on the Yamaha bike, it was actually a 335, 300, 350, something like that. And once again, I put this portable CDI unit and it worked on the Yamaha golf cart. So what do these work on easily? They work easily on all Hondas and Honda clones. I've used them on Hondas and Honda clones, assuming they have a CDI unit and a pulse generator. A lot of the old bikes, like that little 70 there, some of them have points. If you got points, this will not work. I have not tried it on a Kawasaki, and I have not tried it on a Suzuki, and who else is out there? I've already told you I tried it on a Yamaha golf cart, but I haven't tried it on Yamaha trikes or quads. Seems that the folks in China copied a lot from Honda and didn't necessarily copy all that much from other folks. Will it work? Probably. Definitely not, but probably. But I don't know it. I haven't tried it. Another version of this, instead of having that nice big fat CDI unit, you can actually smash one of these in, and unfortunately you got to cut the plug off and then use color coding. Like those 2 green wires go to ground, the red wire is plus 12, the black wire alongside the red wire you don't hook up, and the reason why you don't hook that up to anything is because it's your on and off. Just leave it floating. You go further down, the yellow wire right in there, that goes to your spark coil, and the one, the blue wire below that goes to your pulse generator. So if you want to use one of these, you can. Just make sure that it is, once again, 12 volts GY6. Typically they're gold in color. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff that comes from China is not labeled exceptionally well. And if you've never used the unit before you just buy all the components and it doesn't work, be suspicious that even though they said they sent you a DC unit and it looks like they know what they're talking about, they actually sent you an AC unit. I hope this helps. Once again, any questions, let me know. But I told you where to get the parts, told you how to put it together, I told you how to troubleshoot it if it doesn't work, and I told you what to watch out for. Skinny CDIs are not your friends. If you go in DC, you got to go fat. By the way, I pulled this off the 300 EX, TRX 300 EX, and even though it's a nice fat one, I plugged it into here, and I got my little loose pulse generator and wired that up, and I got my magnet, and I went back and forth across it, and I couldn't get it to spark. So I don't know. They were corroded in here, so I don't know if that's the issue or if this is blown up. It's kind of the problem when you get a unit that's not running, and somebody hacked the wire harness, which means they could have wired it wrong and blew it up. I don't know if it's blown up. I don't know if it died on its own accord. I don't know if it's wired differently. That's why I kind of lean toward this system that I figured out, wired up, and use. I know when I hook this up, if for some reason it doesn't start, I have my little portable, this is a pulse generator and a magnet, and I just wire it up and check to make sure this is sparking. I just have to run this back and forth against this little nub right here, right, and I mean literally touch the magnet end right up against that nub, right, and pull it off a couple of times, and I see if I have spark. Assuming I have spark that way, right, I'm only asking for a functional pulse generator off the engine. And then typically I pull the plug out, make sure I got spark on the engine I'm trying to start. Assuming I have spark, I got a plug, I give it a hoot of ether, another couple of pulls. If it still doesn't start, now I start asking questions like, do I have a leak back problem, right? And there's a kit you buy, Harbor Freight. Matter of fact, it's right up there. See the cylinder leak back? You put air down the spark plug hole. You make sure you're on top dead center, both valves closed. The cylinder all the way up, once again at top dead center. Lobes on the cam down, so you're positive all the valves are closed. And you see if you hear air coming out the exhaust or the intake. I mean, that's typically my troubleshooting. Anyway, once again, any questions, please ask. Folks, I need you to keep your feet down, keep your heads up, and get out there and enjoy all your day. Sorry for the long video. I hope this guys help you build things. And there we are. All right, folks. Once again, keep your head up, your feet down, and get out and enjoy all your days. You don't know how many you're going to get, so have fun. Bye now.